This past Friday, we had a prayer thing with the youth group and some of the college students and teachers one of the things that kind of, I don't want to say saddens, because I'm not so much saddened by it, but one of the things that kind of I'm reminded of, and that I wish we did a better job as adults, as teachers, as parents, especially Christians, is that I wish we would give our youth and our children, and even college students too, more of a vision and a dream for God. And what I mean by that is that this past Friday, as I was just kind of sitting with a couple of junior high boys, one high school guy, and we were just kind of talking and praying and sharing our life together, they were talking about school. And school is a big thing at that time. They were talking about what do you like, how are your classes, and just the regular banter. So for the first 20, 30 minutes, I just eavesdropped and listened in. And I realized that boys don't get very deep. It's just, what's your favorite subject? What do you don't like? And what do you, and all these kind of things. And after a while, they got to the subject of, so what do you want to do? And, in my head, I kind of laughed because at 7th grade, you don't have any clue. I mean, you may throw out a job or an occupation or something, but you have no idea. You have no clue. College students, they don't have any clue. I mean, to be perfectly honest, we don't know yet. And even if you have an idea, you don't know exactly where God's going to lead you. You haven't kind of got there. You haven't launched out. And so as I was listening, I'm not going to mention who, but one of the kids, very precocious, said, I'm going to be a doctor. And then another one said, I'm going to be a computer scientist. And then one of the other guys said, computer programmer. And one goes, no, computer scientist. And I said, I was thinking, do you know the difference, right? And then the oldest one that was asking this question said, I don't know what I want to do. So he's a little bit wiser in that way. So it's kind of fun just to kind of listen to their banter back and forth. And so I asked the youngest one that said they wanted to be a doctor. And I said, what kind of doctor? Or why do you want to be a doctor? And why do you want to be a doctor? And he said, it's quite for a long time, so I thought he was thinking. He was like, I don't know, just want to be a doctor. That was the answer. And I guess I was hoping for a little bit more conviction, a little bit more. I'm not belittling or downplaying, but for some reason, and maybe this was true in my era, and I just don't remember it quite the same way, but a lot of young people nowadays, their goal is an occupation. Their goal is security. Their goal is some position, some title. That's what it is. And even if some of them have a little more idealistic, like good impressions and good intentions, they're very afraid to say, I want to change the world. I want to help other people. I want to bless other people. I don't think it's because they never think about those things, but they just think like, well, that's not really possible. There's a little bit of pessimism without even knowing that's been built in. Kids don't dream that way, I don't think, anymore. They don't think, I'm going to, cure cancer. I'm going to, get rid of some kind of disease, or it seems like everything's been done, and all you can do is this like little micro thing, and you just accomplish some just little task. And I don't know, maybe they're overly realistic nowadays. I don't know. And as I was listening to that, what kind of saddened me was not the kids as much as what are we doing as an older generation? And especially none of you are in my age group yet. But I'm thinking about that age group, the ones that are actually the parents of the high school kids and the grandparents. And then I thought about our teachers and some of the younger parents here, and even some of the college students that are teaching the youth kids. I'm not saying it's all your responsibility, but I'm saying, do we know what kind of message, what kind of things we should be passing on and challenging these young people with? Sometimes I think we get so caught up in Bible study and methodology and the next step in teaching them some theology, some basic life skills, and teaching them academic skills and studying skills and preparing for SAT in college and all these things. We get so caught up in the program and the methodology that we forget to explain to them where we're trying to get them, where we're trying to bring them to what. And to be perfectly honest, you can only go so far through methodology. without having some long-term goal and vision, because eventually you're going to get tired and wiped out. And maybe some of you are just, at that place where you're still going forward, and you go, Pastor James, I can't look that much further down the line, and I don't expect it of young people. But as you go along, at some point you have to think about, what is my life about? And maybe you've thought about it, but you have to come to some kinds of conclusions about it. And here's the other thing, and I don't want to really be so pessimistic, but a lot of college and young adults, and even people who are my age and older, still haven't got it figured out. I'm not saying I've got everything figured out. I've got every I dotted and every T crossed, and I got it all. I'm not saying that, but at least some big picture that I keep coming back to that I remember. And we can talk about sharing the gospel with the whole world and taking the gospel to every corner of the world. And those are some big picture things that as Christians we need to do. And we can talk about what I talk about many times, which is discipleship and about raising other people to know Jesus Christ and then to grow more and more Christ-like. And those are good big picture things to do. And those are all things that we all must be doing as Christians. But then what happens is a lot of people say that's such a big far off picture, but then they don't know how that ties in with their education, with their jobs, with the everyday decisions that they're making, because it seems like the two are radically disconnected. And I think the problem is because our older generation hasn't learned how to integrate it, so we don't know how to help the younger generation integrate it and learn how to do it as well. And so there's a lack of vision and dreaming that's going on. Maybe that pessimism is coming from the older generation. Oh, well, there's only so much I can do. Oh, well, I had that idealism, but now it's gone. Okay? And so I don't want to just kind of leave you guys with this kind of downer and being discouraged. But I think the Bible is really, when you read it in context, it talks about how we as Christians should be the most idealistic. We should be dreamers. And so as I was thinking about this the last month, and then yet on Friday when I kind of was talking with the youth kids again, I just realized that, I want to do a short series for the next few weeks about young people in the Bible, both young men and young women, who really had this amazing vision, dream that God used them in all their unique situations, when everything was stacked up against them, and how they were able to do that. And so that's what I want to talk about in the next few weeks. But today I want to talk about something a little bit more foundational and fundamental. And I want to really address this to all of us, but especially the parents, and of course everybody's a parent to be, but also any of you as you relate with younger brothers, younger sisters, even friends, and think about how this is important for you in order for you to be someone who helps other people find out God's dream for them. And here's the first thing that I want to point out to you. And it comes out in the book of Ephesians. And Paul addresses this. It's really interesting because in Ephesians 6, Paul talks about how marriage is supposed to be. How the husband and wife is a reflection of the relationship between Christ and the church. And how marriage actually is more than just two people falling in love and getting married. But it's about how you can bless one another to become really amazing people with a great vision to follow after God, and how every marriage as a Christian should actually help and bless the other person to really strive and to really sharpen them to be the most useful for God, not only as a husband and a wife and as a parent, but also for God's kingdom's sake. But later on in Ephesians, it also talks about what? Children and parents. And that's not just talking about literally my mom and my dad and me, or me and my children. It's not just talking about that. I think when Paul is talking about this, he's talking about that basic relationship, but within the church, he's also talking about how the older or the more experienced or the little bit further along ought to behave and ought to bless those that are younger and less experienced. I'm going to tell you something. There's a great responsibility that the Bible puts on those who are older, those who are more experienced, those who have more. Everybody, as you go up in your life, God says that you're supposed to, the more you gain, the more wisdom, the more wealth, the more experience, the more anything that you gain, you're supposed to say, how can I use this maximally to bless others? It's not about just amassing more and more for myself. It's about pouring out. That's why the Bible says the leadership in the kingdom of God is turned upside down. The ones that are the greatest, have the most, know the most, are to be the ones that serve the least. The ones that do not have. And all of you guys, wherever you're at, you may say, well, I'm still young, I'm way down here. No, there's always someone behind you. And you know what? A lot of you at least have younger siblings, younger cousins, something. And the thing is whether you know it or not, you have this incredible impact upon them. And I'm sorry in some ways because maybe you haven't had it as well modeled for you. But Paul says, look, here's what I want all of us to be doing, especially the ones that are older. And he gives that responsibility to those who are older. And he says it, and I'm just going to sum up one verse, and we're just going to talk about it in general, but I hope that this will send a motivation for you to begin to live your life in a certain way so that you can impact and be ready to give out advice and serve and help others to have more of an impact as well. So in Ephesians 6:4, you don't even have to look at the Bible. It's only one verse, and I want you just to listen to it. It just says this. It says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. And you look at it and you're like, okay, that's just one statement. It sounds like, hey, parents, be good parents. But no, and actually, if you break it down, it gives us a template for how we ought to be living in this life. You see, here what I find from Paul is, he's saying, whatever you're doing in your life, there will come a stage when you will be a father or a mother figure. Or maybe you already have some influence in that way. And there's a way that you ought to be living so that you can influence and help the next generation to have dreams and be passionate about God. I think that one of the saddest things that I find is that there's so many children that are raised up in Christian families where they go to church. And then the children do not place their faith in Christ. There was a study that was done. It's a little bit dated now, but I don't think it's that much different. But did you know that they did, George Barna did this study about 15 years ago, and I remember reading it, and I couldn't believe it. It said that people who are raised up in moral, non-Christian families, there was a higher percentage of them getting saved and becoming Christians than kids who are raised up in Christian families that regularly attended but did not live out what they said they believed. In other words, you had more chance of becoming a disciple of Christ, of believing in God, if you were raised up in moral people who actually were consistent with what they believed, though they didn't believe in Christianity or God. There's more of a chance that you would come to know God and Jesus Christ than if you were raised up in a family that sent you to church and retreat and all those things, but they didn't live it out. They didn't live out the truth of the gospel. That's crazy, isn't it? The thing that we have to ask ourselves is, how am I living out my life? Is my life helping people to say, I want to know more about Christ as they're growing up in the church? Or is it more like, you know what? There's not too much to this. And when I become an adult, when I grow up, I'm going to look around somewhere else. It has nothing to do with Jesus. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with the teaching. But what that statistic is telling me, it has everything to do with those that are ahead, above, the parents, the teachers, those that are older. And the problem is that if you don't have it, then of course you can't pass it on. Let me just say this just straight up. If you have questions and you're not sure about something, or if you're not living something out, don't pretend like you are. In our church, I hope that this is true. Don't put up a show. Okay? I mean, if you're struggling with something, I'm not going to be offended. If you're saying, I don't know if I believe this, Pastor James, or I'm not sure if I'm a Christian, not great, but I'd rather you tell me that. It's great that you can tell me that, because I want to struggle with you. I don't want to stand up here and say, man, since I'm a Christian, everything in my life is just right, and I have no problems, and I never struggle. It's not true. I struggle all the time. I make mistakes all the time. I have to apologize to my kids all the time. I have to apologize and I have to repent all the time, because it isn't easy. But I want to be honest about it. And the problem is that too many of us think that we have to hide. Here in this passage, it's really interesting, because the very beginning, Paul says to the fathers and to the mothers and to the elders, he says, don't provoke your children to anger. Doesn't mean be buddy-buddy with your kids. That's not what he's trying to say. Just be nice to them. No, he's not saying that. Literally what he's saying is stop frustrating them. Don't act in a way that frustrates your child so that it builds up and they just can't stand it anymore. And you know what? You guys all know this, because you all have parents that have frustrated you, that have made you upset at one point or time or another. And what is the thing that frustrates you the most? What is the thing that frustrates you the most? And if you have good parents and they love you, but what frustrates you the most is this. And I'll tell you right away. And you should remember this, because it sounds like very easy, but it's true. What frustrates you the most is when they are inconsistent. They say one thing, but they don't follow through. They tell you or promise you something, and they don't follow through. Even if you don't know it yet, but eventually you'll figure this out too. When they say, if you do that, here's the bad consequence that's going to happen to you, and then they forget about it, and you're like, at that time you're like all happy, but then later on you're like, gosh, they don't even care about that. What frustrates us when we deal with people who are going to be our bosses later on, or our teachers, is that when they say, study this a lot, and it's going to be on the final, and then not one of it is on the final. You're like, dang, what the heck is this, Or your boss that says, I need that by tomorrow, and then they don't ask for it for the whole week. Or you work really hard on something because they said it's so important, and then they ask you for something else, like, wait, what is this? And they don't accept responsibility for misinforming you or asking you to do the wrong thing. They don't do that. And what happens, how we provoke those that are under us or behind us or that we have authority over, is that we abuse our authority. And parents, let me tell you, when you promise your child something and then don't do it, you're abusing your authority as a parent. You're provoking your child to anger, because eventually they'll say, wait a minute, I believe you and I'm expecting this, and we had a deal, and that's not happening. And honestly, when you promise them a punishment for something that they did wrong and then they do it, you're provoking them to anger as well. What I always tell people is, don't promise a lot. Make sure the things that you say you're going to follow through on. And here's the thing, we all make mistakes. We always forget. Or maybe we go back on something without even realizing we did. Then the thing is that you have to apologize. And you can't just continually apologize. You have to get better. You have to change. You want to be a better influence on other people, then you must be a person who doesn't frustrate other people. You need to keep your words. You need to do what you say. You need to come through. You need to be responsible. And responsibility has nothing to do with your personality. It has to do with your influence on other people. And it also has to do with your character, so that people want you to be on their team, that they want you to be in their life, that you will now have a voice that they will listen to as a result. We lose our voice because We frustrate them by not keeping our word. Trust me, I went through this too, and I'm sure Catherine and Ellie go through this as well with me, but what made me so disbelieving or losing respect for my parents more than anything, you know what it was? After a while, when I was like, especially when you're big-headed in college and you think you start now knowing everything, you're an adult and you're out on your own, oh my gosh, my parents don't know anything. Because it seems like the decisions they make, and are inconsistent. And some of it may be true. It's not an easy thing to do. And maybe you give them a little more slack when you get a little bit older. But what Paul is saying is live in such a way that you do not frustrate other people who have no power to change you or force you to change your behavior. When you hold all the cards, when you have all the power, you have to be very careful about abusing that. That's the first thing. As a teacher, an older brother, an older sister, a parent, later on it's going to change. Tables are going to change. Right now, it happened in the last 10 years, but slowly, but your parent becomes like your child. Did you know that? You guys all know that, right? And some of you might already think that's true, but really become like your child. Your mom or your dad begins to call you for things that they were so independent on. And so eventually you're going to have this responsibility. And you know what's funny is? This stuff that I say, I'm very conscious about trying to apply it for Catherine and Ellie. But then when it comes to my mom, I go, all this frustration comes in. Some of you high school kids are already doing with your mom. Oh, Mom, Dad, roll your eyes. When you have some power, some responsibility, some authority, you have to learn how to wield that well. Please. Learn how to do that. The second thing that it says here is bring them up in the discipline. I'm going to stop right there. In the discipline. This is a word that many of you don't like. To be honest, I have a hard time with this word, and it's only over the years that I've gotten better at it. Bring them up in the discipline. Train them up in discipline. The only way you can bring them up, anybody up in discipline, is that you have to have discipline in your life. You have to have some level of discipline in your life. I'm not saying you have to be perfectly organized. For the most part, I'm a fairly messy person. And when my wife and I got married, she was the more organized one. And so I would make the mess and she would clean it up. It just worked really well. Now, I make the mess, I have to clean it up. And God has a real good sense of humor. Ellie messes up her room all the time, but I've kind of given up. So she only has to clean it up once every couple of weeks. But she's the one that messes up the kitchen, the dining room, the family room, the living room, every other room in the house. There's no one else to clean it up. So she does some, but I have to be on her case. And, for a long time, I've just been, falling around cleaning up, and I just can't keep up. And so now they have Wednesday and Friday chores that they're supposed to do. And she's like, And then you know what she said? And this was a few months back. She said, "But Dad, your room's messy." I said, "But who keeps the rest of the house? I don't have enough energy." And so this is my retort, my excuse, to clean up my room because I have to clean up after you. And then she didn't say anything about that, but you could tell. She's like, I don't know, So I spent a whole week cleaning up my room. And then I, told her to clean up. And then she was like, she couldn't say it. Dad, your room's messy. She couldn't say it. I got rid of her argument. I defeated a 10-year-old. That kind of thing. But the point about it is I realized looking just, from what she was saying, she was just honest with me. Well, right? And whether they say it or not, we think it. We're all sinful. We think it. What about you? If you want to raise someone up to do something, and you say, this is the best way, here's how you ought to do it, you better make darn sure you're doing it. Don't just talk about theory. I don't want to know about your theory. I can read about theories, better theories. Let's see it. That's how we influence others. How do you raise up someone in discipline? You need to learn discipline. I'm just telling you this right now because it's going to be easier the earlier you start. Learn discipline in your life. You don't have, discipline is so easy if you do piece by piece. But if you go like from being undisciplined, you go to college and all of a sudden now you're away at college especially, and no mom, no dad, nobody to tell you when to go to sleep, what to do, what not, you know what's going to happen, right? You're going to try to discipline yourself because you know what you want to do, and you're going to find it's overwhelming. You need to start building into your life little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit. Trust me, I'm not a super disciplined person. I wasn't. And only over the years as I've built up stuff. And there's things that people see me do nowadays like, oh my gosh, Pastor, you're just so organized. I'm not. That's not my natural inclination. But now it's been a habit for so long. I mean, I know some of the adults know because we had a financial thing. I keep track of every single receipt for every single thing I spend. I know to the penny how much money I spent on 10 categories every month. I know exactly what's going on in all my finances. It's not because I'm like greedy or I'm so stuck on money, but it's because I'm keeping track of my budget. And it's not because I like it. I don't enjoy it. But every day or every other day, I keep all the receipts. My wallet gets fat, all the receipts, and I buy everything with a credit card because it's easier to keep track. And then I move the money into the right account so that when it automatically gets debited from that account for the credit card, everything's balanced. I'm not saying that you all need to do that because some of you can have a different way of doing it. But for me, that keeps me very much in check and it keeps me knowing how much I spend. I have a budget for everything. There's a lot of little things that you end up learning about discipline. All these years, since I was 23, I've been preaching a sermon every Sunday. How do you write a 10-page essay every week? It was hard in the beginning. But now it's much more efficient. You know why? I probably told you guys this, but now it's even easier with all the internet and stuff. But whenever something that's really interesting strikes me, an article, a story, whatever, in the past I'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I'd have to write it down or photocopy it and put it in a file, and I never look at my files. Now, I just talk on my watch or my phone, and I put a note in, and it's in my notes. And then I can search my notes, and those things will pop back in. Oh yeah, that's great. So all week long, every day, whenever something pops up in my mind, in the middle of the night, if I wake up, I go and I just grab my phone or my iPad, and I just kind of start writing things down or record things, and it's all there. It's so much more efficient. Because in the past, it would take so much time, and right now, I don't have as much time. It's all about efficiency. One of the things that after, just raising the girls and taking care of the whole household by myself, one of the biggest problems we had, I think I shared this a few weeks ago again too, was food. I like to cook. You guys know I like to cook to a certain extent, but you know what I hate? Like at lunchtime? Because this is the way every child is, I think. So you want to eat this? No. You want to eat that? No. What do you want to eat? I don't know, pick anything. You want to eat this? No. You want to eat this? No. And it just gets frustrating. It just happens. Because when someone asks you specifically, you go, yeah, I don't really feel like that. But you don't know what you want. And even if they went through the whole list, maybe something is little. Then you go, yeah, you know what? I'm hungry, but I don't know. That's where we end up. Or sometimes Ellie would want that, and Catherine would want that, and they don't want the same thing. And that was like a real big pain. So, for me, okay, let's figure out, let's organize. So we sat down one day, and we wrote down everything that they like to eat. So I have a page with like 80 items on it. And every week, we have a all like white marker chart. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch. Just Monday through Friday, not Saturday and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday, they just fast. No, I'm just kidding. They just, whatever, cereal, bread, whatever's left over, okay? So breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch. And then the two of them have to agree, I'm out of the loop, and write it out. And it becomes so easy. Because I can kind of figure out, okay, this is what we're going to do tomorrow, all day, all the meals. Okay, I can prep it ahead and it's all set. And then the funny thing is, they'll eat it. Why? Because they chose it. That's why. If I made that exact same menu up and said, this is what you're going to eat, they'd be like, whine and complain. So this is like so much easier. When we become disciplined and a little bit more organized, it brings security, it brings stability, it helps everybody to get on the same page. It's stuff that's life skill that you're going to have to learn. You want someone that's disciplined and working with you or not? You want someone that's disciplined or not? I don't care how gifted they are, if they're always late and they never follow through, they're never responsible, they're not disciplined, they don't do things when you ask them to do, it won't work. And unless you model that for other people, they're not going to gain it. And not only they're not going to gain it, that really ultimately won't respect you. They may like the fact that you're free and easygoing and all that, but ultimately they won't trust you for anything. Think about this very carefully. If you're getting married and you have all these really responsible items to do, things that are going to hinge on that person getting it done at the right time, you're going to pick that friend that's flaky all the time. It's always been flaky, but you love them to death. You just don't do it. Because trust me, I've seen people who've done it. Lost wedding bands, no flowers at the wedding. You know what I'm talking about? Photographer at the wrong location. I mean, seriously. Having done enough weddings, haven't been to enough weddings. It's crazy. And then you know what happens? They're mad at each other after the wedding. And they're having a really strained relationship for a while. We need to raise up others in discipline, but we need to be disciplined. And the final part is the instruction of the Lord. This is kind of self-evident. If you do not know God's word, if you are not living out God's word, then you don't have much to pass on. I'm sorry. That's just the way it goes. You see, we want to give our strength, our wisdom, all of those things. Ultimately, it'll all fail. Here's the thing. When we're influencing others, when we're blessing others, what we have to understand is everything that we pass on, if you want to make sure that the way and the things that we do are going to last, you have to make sure that it is from a higher source, from God, and not from yourself. I have this conversation with a lot of Christian parents all the time. I'm not saying I have it all sorted out, and most of them will just agree with me, but they don't actually do it. And even for me, I understand why it's hard to do it. So do you believe in the Word of God? Are you a follower of Christ? But then why are you making decisions for your children in their education, in their lives right now that don't reflect that? Because they say, well, right now, this is the way we're going to follow. These are the principles. This is how we're going to do, because the rest of the world says this is what you need to do. And then afterwards, when they get past this phase, then they'll be able to do the principles of the Word of God, and will follow and abide by those. And I said, well, how are they going to do it when they never did it before? It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. In the next few weeks, we're going to talk about some people, some young men and some young women in the Old Testament. And the one thing that you're going to find again and again is that there was someone older, an uncle, a parent, some godly figure, imperfect godly figure, who modeled God's truth, who taught them and poured out into them. And so when some dramatic event happened in their life, they were, when they were all on their own, able to follow after God. And as a result, they made an amazing impact. And we're going to be looking at, the famous people and the ones that did, amazing things. But I really believe this is true for all of us. See, If you have a dream and a vision, and that dream and vision is to be available for God, and you already are disciplined in following after God as best you can, when the opportunity comes, you will make the decision that everyone else won't. And that's when you will have the chance to make a huge impact and difference for the kingdom of God. I can't tell you what it is. And it may become your lifelong goal. It may become your unique lifelong thing. I wish I could tell you, Minha, you're this, and Michelle, you're that, and Lucas, you're this, and here's what I see, and here's your specific, unique calling. I can't tell you that, because I don't know how your life is going to unfold. But when that opportunity presents yourself, if you're prepared, you'll be able to run with it. And you'll see God doing amazing things through you. Yes, do your best in school. Do your best in your work. Do your best in your marriage. Do your best at every stage and every opportunity God gives you. But there will come, maybe more than one, but different opportunities. And all this foundation that's been laid is going to come to fruition. You see, for me, and for all of us, our goal should not be to raise our children to be successful, to raise our children to have some title, some occupation in the eyes of the world. It shouldn't be our desire to help our friends become successful or prominent or powerful or find that career. No. It is for them to become passionate followers of Christ that have made the most of the giftings and all the things that they have in life, so that when that opportunity unfolds, they have the courage and the discipline and the faith to step through and do amazing things for God. The next few weeks, we're going to do some case studies. And I pray and I hope that you guys are doing this. I'm kind of at the other end, but all of you are still on this side. And when that opportunity presents itself, I hope that you are able to step through. And as you do, it may not be easy, it may not be exactly what you think it's going to be, but it will have such an impact on others and upon you. And may that be a true blessing for you. May we learn that through God's word. Let's pray together.